A surprisingly calm Singapore saw Lando Norris coming tantalizingly close to a Grand Slam, but with or without the fastest lap, he is still closing the gap to Max Verstappen. Poor strategy saw Mercedes and VCarb falter, while Ferrari tried to charge through the ranks as the safety car collected dust, and the grid bid a tentative farewell to Daniel Ricciardo. But as Formula One turns its sights towards North America, the road out of Marina Bay is at a standstill. So you might as well cool those brakes, tune into the relaxing tones of Traffic Paradise Radio, and chill with us for a while.
Nice paradise, like traffic paradise. What is this one?
Hello and welcome to Traffic Paradise Radio. I'm Uno, and joining me today are Kira.
Hi.
Niamh.
Hi.
And Tay.
Hi.
How are you all doing? What did you think about the race?
I was watching it while at a dancing competition, so I was watching maybe 2-3 minutes at a time, then having to go and do other stuff. So it was pretty chaotic for me. But overall, I thought the race was quite boring. Just like the actual racing, nothing really happened.
I'm glad that the championship battle's getting a bit more exciting now that Lando's won, but I didn't find it very enjoyable to watch, to be honest. A lot of stuff happened that was just no. So yeah, not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I was glad to have a night race that was actually at a more decent time for me, but it was just one of the most boring races of the season, I think. I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed it, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. So I'm hoping for a better race next time around.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't the most exciting race of all time, I'll admit that much. There was a lot of interesting action, perhaps more so going on off of the track than on the track, which we'll get to and discuss shortly. But before we go on to that, I just want to say to our listeners that if you enjoy listening to Traffic Paradise Radio, please leave us a like and consider subscribing. It means a lot to us and we really appreciate it. It also means you won't miss out on hearing our Paradise and Purgatory candidates of the week, which we will get to now. So, Niamh, who is your Purgatory candidate of the week?
My Purgatory candidate is the VCarb strategy team. I don't know what they were thinking, but I think the high point of the weekend for them was probably getting Daniel to pit for the fastest lap. If it is his last race weekend, that's a good way to go out because he now holds the lap record for the Singapore street circuit, which is insane to me.
I think it was nice giving Daniel a bit of a glory run in case that it is his last race, but 3 pits in a one-stop race is strange, to say the least, so I don't know really what they were thinking.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the VCOV strategists need to go to Purgatory because putting Yuki on softs at like the halfway point through the race, even though it did end up working out, was the strangest gamble I've ever seen. And yeah, the 3 stops in a one-stop race is insane.
Yeah, this is the second appearance on the Purgatory list for VCOB strategy team. And yeah, their sort of soft tire run, it kind of worked. Yuki was able to close that gap up and finished basically right behind Colapinto. But Sainz was on a different strategy, was behind Yuki when he pitted, and came out like 3 cars ahead of him. So clearly, VCarb picked the wrong strategy. So I think, Niamh, that is an excellent candidate for Purgatory. Thank you very much. Tay, would you like to give us your candidate for Purgatory?
Yeah, my choice for Purgatory this week is Kevin Magnussen. Before the weekend started, Kevin said that, also, if anyone from the FIA is listening to this, please cover your ears. He said he was ready to fuck shit up. But the worst he did was make a failed attempt at a fastest lap and then finish outside the points. And I was really hoping for Kevin to make this an exciting race, but not only did he lie, he also had an overall disappointing performance. So for that reason, he's going to Purgatory.
Didn't Kevin DNF because of a puncture as well? I don't know if it was because of the puncture, but he ended up DNFing.
He did, I forgot because he technically classified because he finished like the certain amount of laps, 90%, I think.
He finished on the 57th lap out of 62.
Yeah, so he classified, but he also DNF'd. So just disappointing.
It was just an all-round disappointing weekend for him. He has now got 6 races to get 12 penalty points. So I think he should get the 12 penalty points just for the fun of it.
Yeah, I must try and rack them all up so that they can ban him. Or he should try get banned from the season finale. That's not a real word, is it? Is it? Do they call it the season finale? I don't think so. I think that's.
I don't know, but I think it's a good idea.
Let's get Ollie back in. He can do the final race of the season. He's not going anywhere in F2 right now.
Foul. Jeez.
I'm a massive Ollie Behrman fan, okay? He's just not had a good season.
Yeah, no, he has kind of sucked at F2 this year. Sorry, Ollie.
Yeah, but he's done a lot better in Formula One, so I think he's going to do very well next year. Okay, and then Kira, what is your Purgatory candidate of the week?
So I am sending Checo Perez to Purgatory, and I'm very surprised to say this considering he went to Paradise last week after Baku, but he had a really bad race. He managed to scrape a point. He was stuck behind a Haas for the entire race and just couldn't get past him, and it was just quite embarrassing, I think, honestly.
Yeah, in Checo's defense, Charles was stuck behind that same Haas for most of the race as well. So I think that Haas is maybe wider than is legally allowed in the sport. That is a joke. I don't actually mean it. Please don't sue us, Gene Haas.
Checo not being able to pass a Haas was just, frankly, disappointing. I hate to use the word disappointing so much, but he should be performing better. That car should be higher up in the points, but it's just not working. I don't know what's happening there, but I think he needs to improve if he wants to help his team out in the Constructors' Championship.
I'm just going to piggyback off something that Kira said and play the devil's advocate. Nico Hulkenberg, which Checo was stuck behind, was at one point considered to be one of the best drivers on the grid, and he was a future talent and stuff. I just don't think he's ever properly had the chance to show that. So maybe it wasn't such a bad thing that Checo was stuck behind him because he's a good driver. But yeah, the car speed, he should have been further up with that car.
Okay, always doubts around Checo's performance from week to week. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes for him. For my candidate for Purgatory of the week, and in this case, Tay, I hope the FIA is listening. We're not supposed to swear, apparently. Only rappers swear. So I've had to formulate my Purgatory candidate announcement in a rather unorthodox way because I have very strong words for Mohammed bin Suleiman, and the only way I can truly express that is through the musical stylings of rap and hip hop.
My name is Uno, and here's my drop. Yo, Ben Sulayem can suck my cock. Why you gotta hate on the rappers, boo? You're a cunt, motherfucker, and a racist too. How you gonna tell an F1 driver not to swear? Bitch, you're playing, he's a millionaire. He can say whatever the fuck he likes. So pack your shit up and take a hike. Max, Kimmy, Yuki, my goat, speak your truth with your full throat. Sulayem is wild and he must know his place. Now everyone together, Ben, shut your face!
That was certainly something. I don't think the FIA will be too happy with that. You might be able to join Max Verstappen in community service. If you do, ask if you can meet Yuki and get me an autograph, please. Thank you.
Oh, well, if I'm gonna... Do you think I'll look good in orange overalls? I hope so. It's like not really my color.
You might get the neon yellow that we have up where I live.
You have neon yellow.
Yeah, neon
That
yellow.
reminds me of Braun GP from like 2009. I can go with neon
Oh
yellow.
my
That's cool.
God.
That's cool.
That was musical genius. Please pursue a career in rap, Uno. I think you do very well.
Okay, sure. Who am I to argue with that?
I was having good pat on purpose, please.
That was incredible, Uno, and I definitely agree. Like, I don't see why the press conference needs to be exactly family friendly. I don't know any 3-year-olds that are sitting down to watch the Formula One press conference. So it's a bit of a strange rule, and I think the community service is a totally whack punishment.
Yeah, I believe the drivers are quite angry about it, and they've voiced their displeasure within their drivers association to essentially say like they're not going to stand for this. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks and months and how the drivers respond to what I think is very much an overreach by the FIA. It's an extreme sport. They are sportsmen in high pressure, high adrenaline situation. Of course, they're going to swear every now and then. It's ridiculous for them to try and ban it or to try and punish them for doing it, especially when they control what can be said or what can be broadcast to the world. At a press conference, if Max Verstappen swears and says the car is fucked, well, that's how he feels about the car. He's just being honest. Do you want him to lie at a press conference? You know, it's just silly. Anyway, with all that said, Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, VCARB Strategy Team, you are sentenced to purgatory to atone for your sins on and off the track. May the gods of motorsport have mercy on your souls. After we've sent those devilish candidates down to purgatory, it's time to uplift some candidates to paradise. So, Niamh, who is your paradise candidate of the week?
My paradise candidate of the week is Leah Block, who was racing in F1 Academy. She had her highest ever qualifying position. She started P4 for both races, and she finished in P4 for both races. And she was 0.2 seconds off of a maiden single-seater podium. Just incredibly happy for her. She's such a talented driver, and I hope that she can go very, very far. I would love to see her in Formula One in the next 5-6 years.
I enjoyed the F1 Academy races this weekend. They were lots of fun. For anyone who's not familiar with our channel and listening in, Niamh did an amazing episode on F1 Academy. You can find it in our videos, in our past videos. It's called Keeping Track F1 Academy. So if you want to learn more about F1 Academy, you can go to that video, and Niamh did a great job of teaching me all about it and explaining how the series works and the different stories behind the series and how it came to be. So I highly recommend you go watch that. For me, I think all those ladies do an amazing job every time they race, and they really don't get the acknowledgement that they should get. So I really appreciate that you've brought Leah Block up to paradise this week, Niamh. So thank you very much.
I loved watching the F1 Academy races. If anyone saw on Twitter, I actually took over the account to live react to race 1, which was really fun. I loved watching it. I'm a really big eye-pulling fan, but I also agree that Leah did a brilliant job in the Williams F1 Academy car. Yeah, really stellar job from her.
Kira just mentioned our Twitter account, so I'm just going to quickly take this opportunity to say go follow us on Twitter. It's at Traffic Paradiso, paradise with an O at the end, not an E. And you can follow for all the updates that we have throughout the weeks about the races and about content that's coming up on the channel.
I just want to say that I loved watching F1 Academy as well. It's such a great series, and the races were actually a really good races this week, I think. I'm a massive Dorian Pan fan. Sorry, I butcher her last name every time, but she's such a great racer. But also Leah Block just did an amazing job this weekend. So I'm very happy for her, and I can't wait to see what else she does.
Okay, Niamh, great candidate for paradise. Tay, would you like to give us your candidate for paradise?
I would love to. I think the best performance on track this weekend was definitely by Lawrence the Lizard. He was the fastest on track at his home Grand Prix for a moment there in FP3, lapping faster than his closest rivals on the Marshals team by a good margin. And he hasn't done any rookie testing at all. Overall, a great performance from Lawrence, and it's a shame that he wasn't allowed to race on Sunday, but I have hope we will see him on the grid next year because don't forget there's still a free seat at Audi Sauber.
Yeah, I think he'd look very good in that kick stake F1 green, you know. I think it would really bring out the color of his eyes. So I think that's a great choice, Tay. Honestly, highlights of the week. And, you know, he's also continuing a family tradition in the sport, which I think is important. You know, the legacy that he brings to Formula One cannot be overstated. Really, it can't. So great choice there.
We really are not helping people's ideas that this is not a crack podcast.
What do you mean, Niamh? What do you have against lizards?
No, I love lizards. I really do. But this is an amazing podcast. I love it. But we are not particularly serious people.
I think perhaps Tay is trying to silently protest in a different way to the boring nature of the Grand Prix this weekend. But a great choice, and possibly the first non-human to ever make it into paradise on our show. So a very important week for the podcast. Kira, your candidate for paradise.
My candidate for Paradise, going hand in hand with my Purgatory candidate, I'm sending Nico Hulkenberg to Paradise for his amazing performance in this entire weekend, qualifying P6, keeping Checo Perez in a Red Bull behind for the entire race, keeping Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari behind him for most of the race, and honestly just spending the whole time fighting with cars that really are supposed to be much better than him on track. So definitely I am sending Nico Hulkenberg to Paradise because he did brilliantly.
I really hope Nico Hulkenberg can get a podium with Audi before he retires. Like, that's just something I really, really want for him.
Nico had an incredible race this week, so I think he definitely deserves to go to Paradise.
I agree that he's been doing a very good job, especially at this last race, but in general over the season. It's between him, Lance Stroll, and Yuki Tsunoda for that P10 in the Drivers' Championship. And I think it's one of the more interesting battles that we've seen this season. You know, people often don't pay attention to what's going on in the midfield, but really, there is a championship fight going on here for P10, and it's very interesting. And Nico's really bringing everything he can to this battle to make sure he gets into that top 10 position. So I think it's a terrific candidate. So well done, Kira. And finally, my candidate for Paradise is Lando Norris. He almost had a Grand Slam, and we'll chat about why he didn't get it a little bit later. But he had a 21-second gap to Max. He dominated the weekend, pole position, led from the opening lap, sort of overcame his curse. And I've seen a lot of hate towards him for winning the Singapore Grand Prix, and I'm not sure why. He did a great job. Yeah, there were one or two like little moments where he kind of almost lost the car, but it's Singapore. People make mistakes there often because of the intense nature of the race. So for him to have one or two moments of like, whoops, it's understandable. It's fine. What's important though is that he brought it home first. And he continues to prove that he is in this fight for the championship. And that's what we want as fans, is we want there to be a challenge. It's not fun when Max Verstappen just wins everything and wins almost all the races in a season and walks away with the championship. He hasn't been challenged. He hasn't really had to fight for that. He might be doing a great job, but without any sort of competition, it loses its meaning, you know? So if Max Verstappen wins this championship, at least he can say that he fought for it and he won it fairly with some proper competition. And that's good for the sport. So I'm happy for Lando. I think he did a great job, and I'm sending him to paradise.
Lando Norris did a great job this week. It would have been great for a McLaren one too, but Lando displayed a total act of dominance on Sunday and really a brilliant job. And I have also seen that he's getting a ton of hate. Honestly, people need to grow up because it's stupid. Yeah, he did a great job. Well done, Lando.
Nico Hulkenberg, Lawrence the Monitor Lizard, Lando Norris, Leah Block. For pleasing the gods of motorsport, you are granted entrance into paradise. Ascend. We'd love to hear your choices for Paradise and Purgatory of the week, so leave us a comment below and let us know. Now, we have a couple more points from the weekend we wanted to talk about, starting with Daniel Ricciardo. There is lots swirling around about his seat and whether or not this was his last race in Formula One.
It's a bit strange. They are talking about him as if he's already left. And he's not. He hasn't left yet. Nothing is confirmed. All the commentators on Sunday kept talking about, oh, thank you, Daniel. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for being amazing. He hasn't left yet. So, unless Red Bull are planning on announcing it this week, I don't understand why they're like that. I know it's now a 4-week break to Kota, but it doesn't really make any sense to do it before he's left when nothing's even been confirmed. Red Bull haven't said anything about this, really. I mean, obviously, Laurent Mekies, he was saying he doesn't know anything that's going on, so it sounds like they haven't decided yet. So I think it's a little bit presumptuous. I think it'd be very funny if Ricciardo just shows up to Kota and continues racing as normal.
Yeah, just to add onto that, the Laurent Mekies thing, he said he was hoping for clarity around Daniel's position, which means that he is not deciding and does not know yet what the decision is around Daniel Ricciardo, his own driver, which is crazy. For the team principal of Daniel's team not to know whether Daniel will be racing in the next race, and not because he hasn't made up his mind yet, but because he's waiting for other people to make up their minds, is just bizarre. And it's really starting to show that this sort of dynamic between Red Bull and Visa Cash App RB is highly problematic. Very problematic.
Yeah, I don't really see what replacing him will do when the car just isn't really capable of scoring points. It's not like this car is like good enough to score points every week, and even if the team had good strategies, so I don't think replacing him with Liam is going to do much unless they can work some miracles on the car. And I get that there's some contract details that aren't public that are probably motivating this decision, but I truly think it's a bad idea to swap drivers now. And also, I've got to mention, as an Australian, I am disappointed to see another Aussie leaving the grid.
A lot of the presenters and stuff, like Natalie Pinkham, made a post with an old picture of her and Daniel and was like, oh, thank you for everything, thank you for everything. It's going to be so embarrassing for all these presenters and commentators if he shows up in races like normal in Kota. They went to all this effort and they were like, oh, we're going to miss you so much. And then he just shows up in races again. But also, I'm just not a fan of mid-season swaps in general. I don't think they're the best idea unless there's like a serious reason for it, as in your driver is crashing every other weekend, stuff like that. I don't think mid-season swaps are necessary.
I also think, as following on from what Niamh said, I think it's very interesting comparing the Daniel getting dropped to Logan Sargent getting dropped. Obviously, Daniel's had all this massive tribute, these massive thank yous. Yes, he was around for a long time, but since his return, he hasn't really done a lot. Not this is nothing against him personally. The car hasn't been there. Yeah. But it's interesting seeing the energy difference with the Logan Sargent dropping, because even after he left, personally, the British commentators at least, could not get his name out their mouth, but not in a good way. They would not stop slandering him, talking about how Franco is so much better. And it just happens that the car got upgrades at the same time that Franco joined. I just think that they've handled it so messily. And I think seeing that double standard, I think, is, I don't know, it irks me a bit.
Yeah, I think you touched on a key thing there, messy. To me, this whole situation is messy because there is a lack of clarity about what's going to happen. So people are jumping to conclusions, they're making assumptions, and they might all end up looking really stupid, as you guys say, if Daniel pitches up at Kota and it's just like, yeehaw, motherfuckers, I'm back, it's going to be very awkward. I feel if it really truly was Daniel's last race, Red Bull, Visa Cash App RB should have let everyone know so that he wasn't surrounded by this like cloud of doubts and people asking him what's happening, and basically him assuming he's gone but either not being able to confirm it or just kind of going off of what other people are saying. It's all very unclear at the moment, and I think that clarity is needed in this situation to stop the rumors from spreading, to give Daniel a send off that is worthy of a veteran of the sport like he is, and to just have like a little bit of class. My goodness, like as an organization, doesn't Red Bull, aren't they embarrassed by this? It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to treat a driver this way. It's embarrassing to create this media storm around him. It's only going to cause controversy. It's going to make Liam look like some sort of bad guy. People are already angling that Yuki Tsunoda's the bad guy, when in actual fact, the bad guy is people like Christian Horner and possibly Helmut Marko. I don't know so much about Peter Bayer and Laurent Mekies. They seem to be very clueless as to what is happening. It leaves such a gross taste in my mouth. It's just so classless. It's really just tacky. They could have done this way better. And I think the Formula One community, as much as they might be embarrassed by this, I think they saw how badly this was being done, and they decided that they were at least going to give Daniel the treatment he deserved by honoring him and celebrating his career, given that it might be his last race. But again, like, they were operating under rumors. Presumably some of them know what's going on, but I kind of feel like from what Laurent Mekies has said, he doesn't even know what's going on. So I don't actually know. But I just think this whole thing is messy, and Red Bull have handled it shockingly. And I feel actually really bad for Daniel Ricciardo, and I'm not a Daniel Ricciardo fan. Like, he's in the team that I support, and that's fine, but I'm not like a huge Daniel Ricciardo supporter. But like, I see what they've done to him, and I'm just like, they have not done right by this man at all. And it's just kind of, it's very disappointing.
This whole thing just feels like it's turned into a circus, and I'm beginning to feel really bad for almost all of the drivers because they're all being treated like a circus act. I know that they're part of a pinnacle of a sport that's worldwide broadcast, but they're sportsmen. They're not trying to be celebrities. They're here for the racing. They're here for the racing only. They're not here to have their names thrown around, just to rile up some drama on Twitter. Just, why can't people just be clear about what they want? Because it's affecting these drivers' careers. It's causing unnecessary drama. People are getting mad at each other all over the place, on the grid, off the grid, on social media. It's ridiculous. And honestly, I don't know, it feels really toxic and I hate it.
I just agree with what Uno said, how they should have announced it before the race. That way, Daniel could have had a proper send off, not just this uncertainty surrounding everything, all the media, all the other drivers, like reacting to just the media. It just was insane, and it was just handled so poorly by Red Bull and VCarb. And I think clarity between the teams and clarity to the media is just exactly what they needed, and they failed terribly.
On the topic of Daniel Ricciardo, he was able to get fastest lap of the race, taking it from Lando Norris right at the end. There was an attempt by K-Mag to get it, but he kind of messed it up, and his track time was deleted. Do we think that this was VCarb giving Daniel a bit of a glory run, considering it may be his last race, and so he could go out with a bit of a bang? Or did Red Bull instruct their sister team to prevent Lando Norris from getting that extra point?
I feel like it was probably a bit of a combination. It might have been that Red Bull wanted that fastest lap taken away, so they said to VCarb, hey, get the fastest lap. And then VCarb had the option of Yuki or Daniel, and they went, oh, might be Daniel's last race, let's give it to him. But obviously, I didn't watch all of the race live, I can't say how accurate that is, but I feel like there was more to it than just, oh, Red Bull wanted the fastest lap taken away. Because obviously it does benefit Red Bull because McLaren's 1 point away.
I don't know. I think, again, yeah, agreeing with Niamh, it's probably a bit of a combination of the two. I'd like to think that it was just for the sake of Daniel having a glory run on his last race, but the way that Max thanked Daniel and the way that Max's engineer immediately broke it to Max that Daniel had got the fastest lap seems like there's a bit more to it than just letting Daniel do that for the sake of immortalizing himself in the lap record.
It's very unclear which it was, if it was a glory run or if it was Red Bull telling VCarb to do it. I think if it was the second option, I don't think Red Bull would explicitly tell VCarb to do it. I think VCarb might have taken it upon themselves to do it as a junior team, because if Red Bull actually did explicitly tell them to take that point away from Lando, I think McLaren would make a complaint. I think they still might anyway, but unless they can prove that the order came from Red Bull Racing and not VCarb, I don't think anything can be done about it. But also, I do agree, it might have been a bit of a glory run for Daniel, and that's why they chose Daniel to go for the fastest lap and not Yuki.
From my side, I sort of look at what K-Mag did. K-Mag went, he was on like lap 57 or 56 or something. He decided to put on a new set of softs and go for the fastest lap. K-Mag was basically like out of the points. He had nothing to benefit. Haas had nothing to benefit from it. And he still went for the fastest lap. I think it's maybe like an ego thing. It could be something in the contract that if you get the fastest lap, you get like a race bonus or something, you know, in their contracts that they have with their teams. I'm not 100% sure, but the fact that K-Mag went for the fastest lap, even though he wasn't in the points, kind of proves that, yeah, sometimes teams just go for the fastest lap to get that little bit of glory. You know, it's that little bit more attention on their team, which the sponsors will like, etc. So I think it's very possible that VCarb, with no direction from Red Bull, decided to just let Daniel get that fastest lap. Were there considerations towards Red Bull, the parent team? Sure, possibly, but was there an instruction, either implicit or explicit, from Red Bull? I don't think so. I think, in all likelihood, they said, Daniel's had a terrible race. We can't let him go out like this. Let's at least try and get him this fastest lap so that he gets the lap record. He gets the glory of having the fastest lap. He gets that DHL award. You know, things like that. I don't think there's some like nefarious conspiracy behind the scenes. Zach Brown has kept on harping on about VCarb or AlphaTauri for years and saying that Red Bull is operating two teams and that benefits them in the championship. I'd love to see how VCarb or AlphaTauri have benefited from being part of Red Bull, because it's clearly not evident in their points. They're not challenging any of the Red Bull competitors on track. So I kind of don't see that argument holding any water. But yeah, I think they just wanted to give Daniel a nice send-off. That's all. Let's chat about Ferrari. They had quite a shocking qualifying session. They both got through to Q3, but then Sainz had a crash, bringing out the red flag, and Leclerc had a track limits violation and so lost his time, essentially. How do we feel about Ferrari's performance, both in qualifying and in the race?
I think their qualifying was really disappointing. Like, if I remember correctly, there was an issue with the tire blankets, and it did cost them heavily. Like, it looks like the issue was fixed for the race, but it's always disappointing to see drivers struggling because of equipment malfunctions. So I'm glad that they fixed it, but it was a really sad qualifying session for Ferrari.
I can't really speak for like the Leclerc side of things, but I do think that Sainz is almost not struggling a bit, but he's almost seemed to have gone downhill from the start of the year, because obviously he won a race back in Australia, but the last 2 weekends he's had 2 crashes. So I don't know if it's just he's coming to the end of the season and he's struggling a bit more, or if he's struggling with the car or what. But I just don't think it particularly bodes well for Williams next year. because obviously they are quite far down in the constructors. They don't have a lot of money. If it is, he's just struggling in general with racing as opposed to struggling with the car, then I don't think Williams are going to be too happy with that at all.
Just to end off this section with a bit of Red Bull. So we've already spoken about how Perez sort of struggled in the race. He only got P10 at the end of the day. He did have an issue. His drink bottle was not working, and he said he had a nightmare with the car. On top of that, Red Bull were supposed to bring a special livery, but ended up not using it because they were worried about it putting weight on the car. So clearly there's still concerns from their side about the performance of their car in a race. So perhaps Perez's poor performance can kind of be linked to the fact that they already don't think that their car is good enough. And maybe those issues that they've spoken about before are still very prevalent in the car, and that's why Perez is struggling. But with all that said, Red Bull were able to put their livery onto the F1 Academy car of Hamda Al Kubaisi. So, to chat a bit more about that and about the F1 Academy races this weekend, Niamh is going to let us know a bit more.
So, the F1 Academy weekend was quite fun. There was an incredibly tight qualifying. Pole position was going back between the top three of Abby Pulling, Maya Vug, and Dorian Pin. It was just back and forth between the three of them for the entire session. Very fun to watch. But then the actual races, Abby Pulling had 2 lights to flags victory. She led from turn 1. It was an insanely impressive weekend from her, as per usual. I think that's win 7 she's on now. There were 2 false starts in race 1 for Dorian Pan and Ella Lloyd, who was this week's wildcard. Both of them got a 5-second penalty. And then in race 2, Bianca Bustamante went airborne after making contact with Tina Houseman. And then there wasn't really much that happened after that. Obviously, Abby lights to flag. Maya moved from P3 to P2, so Dorian lost a place into turn 1. And at the end of the weekend, Prema now leads the Constructors' Championship, as Abby Pulling was the only driver for Rodin to score points this weekend. Both of the other 2 have scored no points this weekend. They've had a bit of bad luck. An absolutely insane stat is that Abby Pulling has scored 245 out of the 280 points that Rodin has scored this season.
Thank you, Niamh. Abby Pulling is doing an amazing job. She is miles ahead of the other competitors in F1 Academy, and I really think she's made a name for herself this year. And people who maybe didn't know about her before, like me, are sitting up and taking notice, which is really, I think, the whole point of F1 Academy is to give these ladies some exposure and to give them some experience so that they can move on up to other series. So I'm very excited to see what's in the future for Abby Pulling.
Abby has had an amazing season. It's really impressive to see how she came through because she originally, Dorian Pam was the favourite to win the series. But honestly, I think with how Abby's performed this year, I'd be surprised if she isn't considered for an F3 seat alongside the guaranteed Freka seat.
I think F1 Academy is a great series. Like, everyone should watch it. If you haven't already, go watch our Keeping Track episode that Niamh hosted about F1 Academy. And the races are free to watch on YouTube, so definitely go watch it. It's an incredible series. It puts such a spotlight on young female drivers, and I think it's one of the most interesting series that you can watch.
Thank you, Niamh, for letting us know more about F1 Academy this weekend. Finally, it is time to look back at our predictions and see who came out on top in the inaugural Traffic Paradise Radio Competition Points Championship thing.
We really need to get a better name for this.
Yeah, possibly. Hey, maybe for the next race we'll think about something. Yeah, sure. Why not? Okay, so we're running out of time, so I'm just going to quickly run through what everyone predicted last week, and then we'll have a look and see how the leaderboard has changed. So I predicted that Perez would win, Sainz would come second, and Norris would come third, and that Yuki Tsunoda would DNF. And so I got 0 points for that because I got all of my predictions wrong. Immy, who wasn't able to join us today, predicted that Norris would win, Piastri would come second, and Charles Leclerc would come third, with Magnussen getting penalty points. She only got Norris P1 correct, so she gets an extra 5 points. Kira, you predicted that Charles Leclerc would win, Sainz would come second, and Norris would come third, and that we would get a safety car. Unfortunately, you got nothing there. And Tay, you predicted that Charles Leclerc would win, Norris would come second, and Piastri would come third, and that only 16 cars would finish. Well, Piastri did come third, so you get that point. Unfortunately, only 18 cars finished, so you do not get your wildcard prediction point. And finally, Niamh, you weren't on the show with us, but you did give us your predictions. So you predicted that Leclerc would win, Norris would come second, Piastri would come third, and that a backmarker would finish in P5. So you didn't quite get that wild card prediction right, but you did get that Piastri would come third. So congratulations, you are now on the leaderboard. And let's have a look at that leaderboard. Kira, you are in first place with 11 points. How you feel about that?
Honestly, surprised that I'm still first, considering the 0 points this weekend. You know, you sound very happy to say that I got 0. But yeah, cool. I get to be in first still. Hopefully, I'll have a better weekend next race week. Because I think I Forza Ferrari'd a little bit too close to the sun, as I said I was going to.
Yeah, indeed. We all Forza'd a bit too hard there. You should enjoy your lead while it lasts, though, because Immy is right on your tail with 10 points, having gained an extra 5 this week. I am in third place with 6 points, because I got 0 points this week as well. Tay is right on my tail with 5 points. Tay, how do you feel about that? In fourth place?
I'm going to catch up one day. It's going to happen. But I think I need to stop predicting based on trends and just throw some random guesses out there. I think for Coda, I'm going to just spin a wheel, and that'll be my prediction.
So we're going to see an Esteban Ocon win from Tay at Kota. Exciting stuff. And then finally, in fifth place, joining the leaderboard for the first time with 1 point is Niamh. So welcome to the leaderboard, Niamh. Are you excited to be part of the inaugural Traffic Paradise competition points championship thing?
I am very excited. However, I also do have a really bad habit of predicting something and then jinxing it. So I am not looking forward to this at all.
I also jinx stuff when I predict it, which is exactly why I predicted that Yuki Tsunoda would DNF at Singapore, because I felt maybe then the jinx will backfire and he'll finally finish a race. And it worked. So I'm excited for that. But on that amazing note, it is time for us to end our show. I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Traffic Paradise Radio. It looks like the road heading out of Marina Bay is finally clear, so enjoy the break. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow us if you are listening on Spotify, or like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Also, we have a Discord server, which you can find linked in the description below, where you can join us to talk about the race, F1 in general, or just to say hi. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of your day or night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
This shows up. He's having his flashlight